right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going back to the book of Ecclesiastes. In this series called Beautiful Letdown. Talking about this because this might be, well, there's certain things that all of humanity, to one degree or another, I think has to wrestle with. Existential questions, if you will. Who am I? What is my place in the world? What is the purpose of life? Is there a God? If not, what does that mean? If so, what does that mean? All these things are things that we all have to wrestle with to some degree or another. And depending on the culture you're in, you're probably going to come up with some different answers. The average person is going to answer the question of, is there a God here in the United States differently than they would say in India. They would say, yes, there's a God, and there's another, and then there's another, and then there's about 400 others. I forget how many gods are worshipped in India, but there's a lot. But this series is kind of tackling, in a large degree, some of those existential questions. And so the answers we come up with are vital. It gives us fuel to live the rest of life. Because if we come to the conclusion that life is pointless, then why even bother? It's not hard to see why people arrive at the conclusion of despair and get depressed. And maybe even they either try or maybe successfully take their lives. It's not hard to come at it. I'll bet you there's probably not a person in this room who at some point in time has at least entertained that thought of suicide. Maybe it's because of loneliness. Maybe it's because of existential dread over, what is the meaning of life. I don't know. But I think all of us have to some degree or another. And so for us to just try to go through life without tackling things like this is absolutely criminal. And the church is supposed to be the place where we're supposed to be able to come and tackle this stuff. This is where we get maybe answers to questions, but at the very least we get a group of people to wrestle through the questions with. Bare minimum. And then God has answers. And the book of Ecclesiastes is awesome because it does this. And it doesn't pull punches. It does. Like I said, if you read this and you miss out on the main point, you're going to walk away from this book depressed. You are. It's inevitable if you read this thing and you fail to latch on to that one little phrase, under the sun. It changes the entire meaning of the book. Because Solomon goes through all of life with every advantage, and he tries everything. I was talking last week about how King David left him piles and piles of gold and silver. And I didn't do the research this time. I actually got the AI to do it for me, do all the conversions and everything. And what King Solomon inherited from his father, this is just what he inherited, put him, I believe, at $498 billion. Just to give you an idea, Elon Musk is currently the richest person in the world, and he's about 475. Actually, I got it. Yes. Forbes, actually, I found that. This is our society, okay? There is a real-time list of billionaires. So the richest people in the world. So real-time, 473.1 billion. That's how much Elon Musk is worth. Okay? So nothing to sneeze at, but still not as wealthy as Solomon. And if you have read the Bible and you've seen like the little maps that often come in the back, if you see Israel under King David's reign and Israel under King Solomon's reign, he greatly increased the size of Israel. He greatly increased everything that he inherited. So the size of Israel, the influence, the power, the wealth, everything, he multiplied it. And so, as wealthy as he was at the start of his reign, it wasn't as much as at the end of his reign. And, talk about ladies' man. Man had 700 plus wives and 300 plus concubines. Not endorsing it, okay, so don't get me wrong on that. Not a good lifestyle. But I mean, there's not many guys who can claim to have slept with 1,000 women. So he was a ladies' man. If sex would satisfy, he would know. Okay? If romance, if love would satisfy, go back and read the book Song of Solomon. That's his love letter to, I think probably, I assume anyway, the only one of those wives that he actually genuinely, truly, completely loved. I don't know. Maybe that's a little far of an assumption. I don't know. But regardless, at the time, at least, he was head over heels to say that. And that's in the Song of Solomon. He went through all of that. He ate the best foods. He went where he wanted to go. He did what he wanted to do. He worked hard. Everything that life had to offer, he tried it and found it lacking. And this is kind of where I came on the name Beautiful Letdown. Truth be told, I out and out stole the title from an album and a song from a band called Switchfoot. Excellent album. Can't recommend it enough. And back when it came out, I had it on heavy rotation. I was listening to it, and Tanya is not always. We had a conversation once about the album. I don't know if she remembers this, but I was talking about it, and she's like, I really just don't like the title of that. And I'm like, why not? She's like, it's a Christian album, and you're talking about letdown. And I'm like, you missed the point of the song. And so I came at it, and I went ahead and printed out the lyrics. I want to kind of read this off for you. I thought about trying to do it, but just the way it's done, I can't reproduce any justice to it. So it's better to read it. Plus, I thought about playing it, but there's copyright issues, especially since we live cast everything. Best I could hope for is that section would be blanked out. But regardless, here's the words. It was a beautiful letdown when I crashed and burned, when I found myself alone, unknown, and hurt. It was a beautiful letdown the day I knew that all the riches this world had to offer me would never do. In a world full of bitter pain and bitter doubts, I was trying so hard to fit in until I found out that I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I will carry a cross and song where I don't belong. Verse 2 says, it was a beautiful letdown when you found me here. Yeah, for once in a rare blue moon, I see everything clear. I'll be a beautiful letdown. That's what I'll forever be. And though it may cost my soul, I'll sing for free. We're still chasing our tails in the rising sun. Our dark water planet's still spinning in a race here. No one wins and no one's won. I'm going to set sight and set sail for kingdom come. Kingdom come. Your kingdom come. And he said, won't you let me down? Yeah, my foolish pride forever let me down. It says, easy living, you're not much like your name. Easy dying, hey, you look just about the same. Won't you please take me off your list, easy living? Please, come on and let me down. Here's my personal favorite verse. It says, we are a beautiful letdown, painfully uncool. The church of the dropouts, the losers, the sinners, failures, and fools. Oh, what a beautiful letdown. Aren't we salt in the wind? Hey, let us sing one true tune. And that speaks to me for a lot of things. It says, first of all, that everything the world has to offer is realizing that God is the fix to it is beautiful. And so we get that, but we're also a beautiful letdown to the world, because it's like, hey, Here's all this stuff. Here's what you need to chase after. And the church, when it's doing what it's supposed to do, says basically, no, thank you. I want off this merry-go-round. Spin in the circles. I don't want to do this. We're a letdown to the world. We're beautiful to the Father. Like I said, that last verse where it says, let's see, we are a beautiful letdown, painfully uncool, the church of the dropouts, losers, sinners, failures, and fools. Not very flattering language, but when you stop and think about it, I'm reminded of another song I used to listen to back when I was a kid. And it said, somebody called me foolish, somebody called me odd, but I'd rather be a fool in the eyes of man than a fool in the eyes of God. And I think that's kind of the sentiment that's there. So there's all kinds of ways that life is a letdown, and we're a letdown, but God sees it all. And he's taken us under his wing as his church. And we are his. And that makes it all beautiful. That is what Jesus is in the business of doing. He's redeeming. He buys back what was a letdown to the world, and he says, okay, this is mine now. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to build it into this beautiful city of people who are wonderful and glorious and who would bring glory to my name forevermore. That's who we are. And if we can get off the crazy merry-go-round or the rat race, whatever you want to think of it as, and just sign on with God's kingdom, we're going to be in such good shape. It's not to say that things are going to be easy. I mean, you guys know me well enough to say that I don't say that life is going to be easy. There's a lot of ways that signing on with God makes things hard. But there's also ways that gets a lot easier. So you got the God of the universe on your side, there as your personal friend, companion, adoptive father, savior. Even though the challenges get bigger, better. But the things I love about the book of Ecclesiastes is it asks and eventually answers a number of questions, like, where's God when bad things happen? Have you ever heard anyone wrestling with that one? How can I keep from becoming bitter towards God? Because when life lets us down, that's the tendency. And we have this way of trying to blame God for what we feel like he should do. We have expectations of God. They're not necessarily right expectations, but we do. We kind of think that God ought to be Santa Claus. And if we're good little boys and girls, he's going to give us what we want. That doesn't really happen. And so how do we keep from becoming bitter towards God? Another question, how do I deal with the uncertainty of life? What do I do when I'm not sure about God's will? We'll see that in here. When bad things happen, is it because I don't have enough faith? You ever wrestle with that one? And then here's one. A Christian is supposed to have fun. The world looks at us and says, no, Christians are downers. It's like, I don't want those guys at my party. They're just going to drag everything down. And there's, depending on the nature of what's going on, we might. But if it's just the simple pleasures of enjoying company, good food, maybe, whatever, there's nothing sinful about that inherently. Do things within that realm. Don't get me wrong, better than stuff, but still, in itself, it's not a bad thing. Matter of fact, one of the guys that I highly respect, Jack Vanderstel, basically takes a look at the miracle that Jesus performed at the wedding in Cana, where he turned water into wine, and he looked at that, and it's like, these people are drunk, okay? The wedding guests are drunk already, and so that's why typically they bring out the poorer wine later on, because people aren't care, because they're already a little tipsy. But Jesus makes wine, and he doesn't make bad wine. He doesn't make mediocre wine. He makes good wine. And good wine, you can kind of take that to mean stronger wine, okay? He came and he made that part of that wedding better. And so you can reach the conclusion that whatever we step into, we're supposed to make it better. I agree with that philosophy, or whatever that's worth. Okay, so let's take a look. We're digging in on Ecclesiastes chapter 2. So let's see what he has to say here. Now again, bearing in mind there's basically two keys to this book. The main one being that, it's all under the sun. Okay, if you do things without God, it's meaningless and empty, and it has no significance beyond your own life. But with God, that changes things. The other key is that things that God gives us, things that we have, are intended to enjoy. Okay? All right, that's not a sin. Okay? All right, here we go. Let's dig in. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 says, I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. While still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing fields. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings I had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold and treasured many kings and provinces. I hired many wonderful singers, both men and women, and I had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me. My wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness. For who can do this better than I, the king? I thought, wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they're going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and foolish share the same fate. Both will die. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what is the value in all my wisdom? This is all so meaningless. For the wise and the foolish both die. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. This too is meaningless, very tragic. So, what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It's all meaningless. So I decided, maybe nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. Who can eat or enjoy anything apart from Him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please Him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please Him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Hear that phrase again and again. Anytime you're reading the Bible and you see something repeated, pay attention. It's not coincidence, okay? This phrase, chasing after the wind, is a big thing that he says again and again and again in Ecclesiastes. And it gives us this feeling of futility, that all this stuff that he's engaged in, it's worthless. It has no benefit to him. And it's tearing him apart. Now remember, I strongly believe that this book was written at the end of his life. So we're not just seeing, like, oh, over the last 6 months, okay? This is not just a small chunk of his life. This is his life, the whole thing, okay? We're seeing the ups and the downs. He's talking in a sentence sometimes about what could have been a period of years. So he's talking about, hey, I was working hard and I was doing everything, and I was getting so much and increasing all my stuff. I had all these houses and gardens, and I had it all. I worked hard for it. I earned it. And I looked and I just thought, what's the point? I got to give this to my son. My son's an idiot. He's going to waste it all. And I mentioned last week, if you've read the Bible, Rehoboam was king of Solomon's son, and he was in epic proportions. Okay? He didn't waste it all. He wasted it all. He broke the kingdom that God promised to David. See all this. And if you can basically look at this, you can kind of divvy it up into categories, okay? So, first thing we see him chasing after at the beginning of chapter 2, he says, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. Right? There's a term for this. It's called hedonism, okay? Maybe you've heard of hedonistic or something like that. And hedonism is, simply put, the pursuit of pleasure. And so it's basically Solomon saying, I'm going to go after whatever it is that makes me feel good. Now, stereotypical American life, this is like the college years, okay? End of high school, college years, okay? This is when they start going to frat parties. They start sneaking around. They go wild. This is the stereotype anyway, okay? This is what happens pretty often. It's when we hear the Proverbs, as parents anyway, when we hear the proverb that, train a child up in age, so that when he's old, he will return to it. That gives a lot of parents hope, okay? Because we try hard to raise our kids, and then they just kind of like decide, hey, I can make my own decisions. I'm an adult now. I don't have to tell my parents. I don't have to get their permission. I don't even have to have their approval. Just, for a lot of people, the 20s are rough years. And it's not just because they're poor at the start of life. That's part of it for a lot of people, but it is not all. A lot of people, it's because they're wasting money on whatever it is that brings them pleasure. But you know what? We don't outgrow this. We don't have. We change. We mature in it, but we don't actually change. We chase after different things that give us pleasure. Maybe that's golf. Maybe that's music. Maybe that's cars. Maybe that's books. Maybe that's movies. We find mature ways to do this. Maybe it's coaching your kids' baseball team. I don't know. It's going to look differently for each of us. We find mature ways to seek after pleasure, ways that society doesn't frown on. And we chase after that. Maybe it's that big house. Maybe it's having, not just your everyday driver, but you got that lifted truck, or maybe the Mustang that, has a 0 to 60 that's under 5 seconds or something. I don't know. Whatever it is, we chase after different things. I mean, like I said, we don't outgrow it. This is why we have the cliche of the midlife crisis. The guy who goes out and buys a Corvette or something at, 40 years old. Maybe it's a little more tame. Maybe it's, you want to buy that four-wheeler and that side-by-side or whatever, and you're going to go on to those biannual trips to Colorado and do that. Maybe you're going to buy that really nice kayak and you'll go fishing in the water or just bass boat. No bass boat.
No, not $100,000.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah, well, it costs as much as a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But I mean, that's hedonism. Well, and we just moved from immature ways of chasing it, with frat parties and beer and chasing, whoever we find romantically interesting, sexually interesting. I mean, we need romance anymore. But that's what we do. That's hedonism for us. And basically, if you think that there's some form of pleasure that's going to make you happy, find in the end is disappointment. Because in the end, it's not enough. This is why we have new iPhones out every year. This is why we have new cars out every year. We've got to do some design change. They can't just leave it the same as last year. They got to tweak it in some way to make it say, oh, look, it's new and improved, right? Everything. They're telling us time and time again, you don't have it all. You need something else. You need to consume something else. And in the end, it all disappoints. If you're chasing after women or men in order to get your sense of pleasure, and that's the only purpose for it, then guess what? When they stop giving you pleasure, you'll find something else. This is why adultery happens. This is why divorce happens. Not the only reason, but it's among them. And so, hedonism, what Solomon's trying to tell us here at the beginning of chapter 2 is that it was all pointless. That's what he says. But I found that in verse 2 it says, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found this too was meaningless. I said laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. Still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find in a brief life in this world. Have you ever known someone who could be simultaneously wise? I've seen it. I mean, it's like they can make all the right decisions in business, maybe, but like they go home and their family they can't do anything wrong. It's vice versa. They're great at home. They're the stable rock of their family, whatever else. And then they go to work, and it's like, it's a new job every month. They got horrible spending habits. It can look different, all kinds of different ways. The point is that it's the same sort of thing. We can have wisdom. While still seeking wisdom, we can also clutch at foolishness. Verse 4, I tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself, by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect water and irrigate my many flourishing groves. Bought slaves, both men and women. I gotta say, just pause. The things that he's chasing after, he's not endorsing necessarily. Okay, this is not the Bible saying that slavery is okay, or that chasing after women or wealth or whatever else is okay. It's not. But this is the world that they lived in, and this is the world we live in, and so he addresses the things that we have to deal with, questions that we have. All right. So now I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired many wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. He had it all. He had personal concerts. Taylor Swift was coming over to his house to do gigs. So I became greater than all who lived in Jerusalem before me. My wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors, because I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish. It was all so meaningless, like chasing. There's nothing really. That's another area that he went looking for. He didn't just chase after pleasure; he chased after materialism. You see that with like big houses, the gardens. I mean, how many houses did he have? We have no idea. He could have had a home in every city that he was a king. He could have had gardens all over the place, and that was it back then. Landscaping extraordinary. The hanging gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, was still wonderful. He had everything he could want, so he chased after materialism. Anyone who chases after materialism? I have a little more money, so I can have a little more stuff.
We all
Yeah. Because money brings things that we, to some degree, need, like security. One of the most essential human needs is for security. Physical, emotional security, okay? We're not feeling secure. We can't chase after higher things. That's part of Maslow's thank you, hierarchy of needs. I remembered the name, but not the actual useful information. So security is one of those core human needs that we have. And if we don't have it, we feel trouble all the time. So that's we chase after that. And that's what money's all about, right? Providing that security. So I don't have to worry about paying bills. It's no problem. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat because, if I come home and wife hasn't made dinner, so I eat. I eat the steak anyway, so I'm eating the steak. These days, that's a small fortune. But, it's all security. And finding these people in his life, all these wives, all these concubines, everything, they provided different times. He chased after all of it, and he got it. And in the end, he's like, it's worth it. Doesn't mean fail. Verse 12, so I decided to compare the wisdom with foolishness and madness, for who can do this better than I, the king? That's a scary statement. If my king said, I want to chase after foolishness and madness, I'd be like, dude, I am moving. I do not want to be there when the country goes down in flames. Oh. But there he was, chasing after foolishness and madness. I thought wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. So there's limits. He said he chased after foolishness, but he found wisdom to be better. Okay, shouldn't be a revelation, right? That should be common sense, but unfortunately, it's not always. For the wise can see where they are going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and foolish share the same fate. Oh, good of God. So I said to myself, since I will end up in the same place as the fool, what's the value in all my wisdom? This is all so meaningless, for the wise and the foolish both die. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. One of the books I'm reading for this, the author took a trip to London, and he was wandering around, and he was trying to find a place called the Metropolitan Tavern. His church, he's a pastor. So pastors go on vacation because we don't look for churches, right? At any rate, Metropolitan Tabernacle was the home to the guy that has come to be called Prince of Preachers, Charles Haddon Spurgeon, C.H. Spurgeon. Maybe you know the name, maybe not. I don't know. The guy lived back in the 1800s, and he started preaching when he was 16. They made him pastor of a large church that had dwindled down. It had a seating of 1,200 people, and it had dwindled down to relatively small. It was like 500 people. Within a few years, not only had he filled that sanctuary up again, but they needed to build a new one. I think it was more than double the size. And at one point, at the height of his career, there was a publishing company that was putting out his sermons every week, publishing. People were buying these sermons. When was the last time you bought a printed version of a sermon so you could read it? Right? Admittedly, it's a little different culture. Everything was print back then. We will watch the videos now, but still. That's how big a deal it was. And he was quite possibly the most famous person on earth at that point. His sermons had reached across the sea to America. They'd gone into Asia. He was famous all over the world. And this guy, this author, went there to go find his church. And he's going around asking for directions. Excuse me, can you direct me to Spurgeon's Church, Metropolitan Tabernacle? They're like, who? What? The people who lived in the neighborhood of this church didn't know who Spurgeon was. So 100 years later, who might have been potentially the most famous person in the world was forgotten in his own neighborhood. It's going to happen with us too. We will be forgotten. Someday, a couple hundred years from now, someone's going to look at the marker on your grave and say, wow, that one's old. It was from back in, they were born in the 1900s. And that's going to be it. That's going to be your life. Your life is represented by that dash in between the years. All we do is chase after pleasure, chase after work, chase after whatever it is. Then we are wasting our lives without that key, without having that relationship with God, which puts eternity into everything we do. It's all meaningless. He goes on further about work. Let's look at verse 18. I came to hate my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I've earned. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I've gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely, with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Days of labor filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. Ever lost a night's sleep over something going on at work? Some project you had to get done, something that was coming up that was causing you anxiety? Yeah. He's saying all this stuff, in the end, leaving it all to somebody else. They may waste it. It's kind of like, just imagine you bought some classic car and treasured this car, maybe 57 I'm a beautiful car. You love it. You care for it. You're taking it to all these antique roadshow things, showing it all. Everyone oohs and ahs over it. And then you die, you pass it on to your kid who doesn't have any appreciation for it. And he's just like, I'm going to run this thing. And he doesn't change the oil. Ever. These things, these old things, they make them like rocks. They don't make them like they used to. I haven't used this thing. And he does. Maybe he gets it into an accident because he wants to see how fast he can go. It's the same sort of thing. Whatever it is we've built up, it's going to have to be passed on. And the next person probably not be able to appreciate it. man who was founded the stores Woolworths became one of the wealthiest men in the world. Okay, he died, passed it to his daughter. Millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, she went from I forget how many marriages she had. I think it was like 7.
Wow.
And she, I think for her 16th birthday, she was given this huge yacht. All these things that she had when her dad passed away, he gave it all to her. By the time she died, she was worth like $300,000. So she had about 0.1% of what her father had built. This is a normal story with people who built wealth and people who inherited wealth. Typically, not always by any stretch. There are a number that appreciate it and build it up further.
More.
But typically, they waste it. And it's gone in a generation. And how many times have you heard about the tragedy about somebody who won the lottery? 5 years later, like billions of dollars down the drain in 5 years. And you're like, I don't see how you can do that. Well, if you climbed in their shoes and went on their journey, you would see how they did that. That's what he's talking about. It is all meaningless. So if you're putting your hope in stuff you build up, and you're hoping to pass on a legacy to your kids, the odds are good your kids aren't going to appreciate that legacy as much as you want them to.
Yeah, they talk about generational wealth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's hard to find. There are some families that do it. There are some. Often it's, and every generation there's this chunk. Sometimes it raises it. Yeah. Because then it's a life of ease. It's not hard work poured in. They buy that, new house in Hamptons or whatever. And to them, it's just money. The person who built that money, it's blood, sweat, and tears. It goes on. Verse 24, he brings it all down. He starts getting into the point of all this. So I decided there's nothing better than to enjoy food and drink, to find satisfaction. Then I realized that these pleasures were in the end. So he's been talking about the pointlessness of it, the despair inherent in investing our anxiety, our energy, our lives into this stuff. And then he turns around and basically says, I realize these pleasures are from the hand of God. There's nothing inherently wrong with building up money. There's nothing inherently wrong with taking pleasure in life. There's nothing inherently wrong with golf. Okay. I don't care for it, but that's me. If you like it, you enjoy it. Go for it. These things are gifts from God. It's meant to be a glimpse of God's mercy and grace. That one. That's what it's for. These are from the hand of God. For who can eat or enjoy anything apart from Him? Otherwise, you can't help but have that thought. It's going to go away. It doesn't matter what it is. You built up a big company, and poured it all in. Have you ever heard of a hostile takeover in business? Taken away from you. Circumstances go just wrong, don't happen. Go find that trophy wife, and you're walking around with her on your arm, and she's fawning over you. What happens when she needs to die the scripture? Pouring your life into this stuff, and it's going away. That's the sad news. But if you're pouring your life into God and you have these things, suddenly it becomes three-dimensional. And you're building eternity into it. All these things have some meaning beyond just by, yes, God wants you to enjoy it. If He's given it to you, He didn't give it to you so that you could just despair over it. He meant for you to enjoy it, but it needs to be in context of that relationship with Him. That's why I said in verse 25, for who can eat or enjoy anything apart from Him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please Him. But the sinner becomes wealthy. God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please Him. This too is meaningless without chasing Him. God gives. That's part of what Ecclesiastes is trying to tell us. These things are meant to be a gift from God. It doesn't always happen that, the righteous get to make piles of money and all the unrighteous people, they're just paupers and poor and homeless or anything like that. No, it doesn't work out that way. But bear in mind, there's going to be a reckoning in the end. And all the money that the unrighteous people have earned by walking on top of other people, it's going to go away. And it's not going to help them out one little bit at the time of judgment. That relationship with God, that helps out at the time of judgment. Something that trip to Bahamas where you're looking out over the ocean, man, is so awesome. It's not just an enjoyable moment, it's an enjoyable moment of worship. That you can look out and say, wow, God, you did something amazing. This is so you. I'm just going to drink it in God. I'm thankful for this moment. It all changes. It all takes on greater meaning. We give everything to Him. When we pour our lives into Him, and all this other stuff takes on eternal significance. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for who you are and what you've done. I thank you for all these good gifts that you give, and I ask that you help us to be able to enjoy them without guilt or pleasure, not in a way that's going to harm us or others. It's not going to be sinful or anything like that, but just to use the things you've given us. Yes, to enjoy it, to help other people, to do good things with, but whatever it is, whatever work you put our hands, no matter how hard it is, help us enjoy it, take pleasure in it, because there's joy that you've given us in a job well done. That really is a gift from you, and so I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for the many other gifts you give, and just ask, again, that you work in our hearts. Turn our hearts to you. Don't let stuff, don't let romance, don't let sex, don't let work, don't let any of those things pull our hearts away from you. Because at the end of the day, we need you more than all these things, more than anything they can give. We need you. So, capture our hearts. Help us to do the things in our lives that will remind us of who you are and how great you are and what you've done for us. Help us to have that attitude that really is so grateful for everything you give. Help us to see you in every person that we contact with, every loved one, every business associate, every coworker, every neighbor. Let us see eternity built into the things that we buy with the money that you've trusted us with. Let's be grateful every day. Let us focus on you. Thank you so much again. It's in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.